Hello everyone, welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. Tonight we're looking at my Fluval Edge aquarium, the 7-gallon version. This is the tank that has the glass top. You can see here built in, it makes for beautiful aesthetic, but a pain in the ass to clean. I've talked about that a bunch of different times. In general, I think it's worth it, and if it's your one aquarium in the house and it's got a great place and a nifty stand, it's very worth it. It's a beautiful tank, but it is a pain in the butt to clean. You have to take that top off, that's the easy part, and then reach in to a limited amount of space up top and do all your aquascaping. There's no way you can remove that top unless you really want to remove that top. And anyway, enough about that. So I wanted to talk about some things that are happening in this aquarium, mostly good, some not so good, and what it's all about and what it means and what it means moving forward. The first thing I want to discuss is this beautiful carpeting plant called Monte Carlo. You can see it down there. It's the featured plant in this aquarium. And in the hobby, when people want to create a carpet for the bottom of their tank, they're often looking for an effect similar to this, and they want it from a plant like the Monte Carlo, which is not a no-brainer to grow and to keep healthy and in this luxurious green color. I have been able to achieve that in this tank in particular, and so it is my mother colony, and all the Monte Carlo I have in my other tanks originate from this colony of Monte Carlo. When I give it a haircut, which involves a water change and then reaching in through that difficult little hole and trimming the top off of this, and then pulling the cuttings and using those to start new growth in other aquariums. So not an easy task when you have this lid. And in general, it's it's like getting a haircut. It's not a complete no-brainer. It takes some commitment, and you have to do it. If I don't do it, it'll grow and grow and grow if it's healthy like this one, and dominate the tank, arguably like this one is already beginning to do yet again after a couple weeks since the last haircut. And I'll have to do it again really anytime I want to, if I want to achieve the inch or so carpet as opposed to 2 and 3 inch and growing that you see in the center where it's getting hit with the most light. Monte Carlo loves high light, a nice amount of airflow, good water quality, and CO2. To be honest, you can have success with this plant without CO2, but it's really sort of damn near a deal breaker. So this tank, I'm running CO2, and I'm using that Fluval kit you see in a lot of pet stores. It's not the best, but it's readily available, and all things considered, it works pretty good. But this is not a review of the Fluval CO2 system. It works pretty good. All CO2 involves some money being spent and time dealing with it, but that is really damn near a deal breaker for Monte Carlo if you want to grow a carpet. So that's what's happening with this plant, and the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place is because I wanted to talk about what, if you can see those smaller bubbles rising up from the Monte Carlo, that is the effect called pearling. Pearling's highly desirable in the aquarium community, especially in the fancier aquascape areas of the hobby. People love to see that. It means you have a healthy plant. It's a tranquil effect to see those little bubbles. What it is the plant photosynthesizing, releasing oxygen bubbles into the water from the CO2 that it's taking in, the carbon dioxide, and we call that pearling. And if you see it in your aquarium, it's a great sign. And you can't see it from any number of plants, but because this is a ground cover of sorts, it makes it more obvious here, and I'm trusting the camera is revealing that. Don't mistake it for those larger bubbles there. Those are from the water flow coming off the hang-on back filter that's dropping water into the tank and creating the larger bubbles. And also another kind of flaw in the design is that water flow coming down, those bubbles. If you have the tank circulating at a reasonable amount of water flow, it creates sort of an area where no fish can comfortably swim. So a creature like a betta, while I've had one in this tank, it will have to live to the sides because it doesn't want to hang out underneath a freaking waterfall. And even these fish, you can see, avoiding that part of the tank because of it. Kind of a flaw. There's ways to deal with it, some obvious, like a different kind of filter, etc. But generally speaking, it's just one of the idiosyncrasies of this tank. But that water flow is good for plants like Monte Carlo, and you can see the Busalandra. That's that other plant in the center behind the water bubbles, a slow-growing, beautiful ground cover plant in and of itself, and not easy to grow either, and also a beneficiary of CO2. These are lamb chop Rasboras. This group I've had for years, actually. Middle-aged to old specimens love that copper color, that gleaming bronze color. It differentiates them from their cousin, the Harlequin Rasbora, which is bigger and a little duller and much more common. So pearling is the first effect I wanted to talk about and what's happening in this tank. Now in this other plant, my favorite plant, the Cryptocairn, you can see this will happen here. Plant melt. You see that leaf going yellow? It's going to rot. There's no way around it, and I could snip it now and get rid of it, which I probably will. But that can happen with this plant in particular, especially when you first put it in. And you know, that's a challenge with the crypts in general. But it has new growth at the bottom, and so the plant is not in jeopardy. It just can look kind of ugly when that happens, and you will have it happen with crypts. I have Java fern in the back, that clump behind it. It will need to be pulled out completely as a clump and trimmed. Otherwise, it too will dominate this aquarium. And then, and you can see here through that algae, which I'll talk about, it's pretty much thick to the glass, and that creates sort of dead water, which is why I'm getting things like algae, and also contributes to why I have something like planaria, these little creatures here, considered undesirable, like almost aquarium rats, if you will. Very few fish actually eat them. We wish that all fish would, but they don't, and they have been known to attack ornamental shrimp, especially the young ones or ones that are resting, and like you would at night. I have heard that. They also, and the bigger problem for me, is they can dominate, and they're just kind of gnarly looking. They sort of look like a horror movie creature, you know, and I don't want to get into it too much, but there's a phallic quality to them with that head that they have and that sort of slimy, well, you get the idea. An undesirable. There is an awesome treatment called Planaria X, which generally doesn't harm anything else but will eliminate them quickly. It's an additive, and it really, really works. But eventually, when you have a lot going on in an aquarium, you will find planaria, and some fish, live bears in particular, will eat them, but I don't have any of those in here, and I haven't even seen live bears eat them, to be honest with you. So those are some features about this aquarium. I'm not going to do anything about the planaria at this point, and I am going to trim this Monte Carlo next time I do a water change, probably in the coming days. If I hold off too long, it will get too thick. These fish need real estate. They're already compromised in terms of swimming space, so I'm going to want to do that. In general, this aquascape has a wonderful integrity to it. Although the more the plants grow, the less you see the glorious piece of driftwood that creates a hockey stick from low to high here, but that's obscured completely. You can't even tell. I'm okay with that, but when I trim it, it adds its own beauty to the tank, like when it was first set up, and still is in there the way it was set up, just obscured now. Otherwise, with this aquarium, it's water changes like everything else, cleaning the glass. I'm getting a lot of this algae, and I never had algae problems, and generally speaking, CO2 keeps that from happening. I'm not sure why I'm getting it now, but it's happening in all my tanks. I'm thinking it's late summer, the sun's hitting the glass in a way it doesn't for most of the year. The temperatures are warmer in the aquarium itself, and you get algae. So I just have to clean algae with the hand scrubber. There's a couple really nifty ways to do this. I use a soft kind of a micro sponge, and it works tremendously well. I don't use any scouring stuff or any stick with an attachment at the end. I just get in there with my hand and the soft micro sponge and wipe down the inside of the tank, and it really works. But the algae keeps coming back, so I'm hoping come September, October, into the darker, colder part of the year that will be easier to manage. But in general, I'm pretty happy with this aquascape, maybe even really happy with it. And I hope you learned a few things. If you have any questions, hit me up. And as always, keep your hands in the tank. Ciao for now.